4 hours before his execution, Beckett Redfellow sits in prison waiting for the end. Before the scheduled time arrives, a priest comes to speak with him, hoping to hear a confession or at least keep him company in his final hours. But Beckett stays calm and confident, insisting that he is fine and does not need anyone there with him. Still, the priest keeps pressing him, simply to follow procedure. In the end, Beckett finally begins telling the story of how he ended up behind bars. Long before Beckett was even born, his mother, Mary Redfellow, was the daughter of the wealthy Redfellow family. Her father, Whitelaw Redfellow, was worth $18 billion, and Mary was supposed to inherit it all. But then she made one mistake that changed everything. She fell in love with a man, the future father of Beckett, a musician who had been invited to perform at a Redfellow family event. Their relationship was forbidden, and when Mary became pregnant, Whitelaw was furious. He threw her out of the family. Not long after that, Mary gave birth to Beckett. His father was only there for the birth, and then he died soon afterward. From that point on, Mary raised Beckett alone. She lived on the edge of town in Belfield and worked an office job to support them. Even though she had been cast out, she was still tied to the family fortune because Whitelaw had already created an irreversible will. His entire empire, including gold, real estate, private planes, and even 2 private islands, would pass down to his descendants, and the youngest of them was Beckett. Even in difficult circumstances, Mary did everything she could to raise Beckett well. She gave him everything within her means, taught him how to play piano, encouraged his eccentric sense of style, and even taught him archery. Around that time, Beckett also met Julia, the girl he had liked since childhood. The first time they really spoke was at Julia's birthday party. Beckett told her that he was an heir to the Redfellow family, and that immediately caught her attention. Later, during a school performance, Julia kept watching Beckett. After his moment on stage, another student named Lyle came up to perform. Beckett ended up sitting beside Julia, and then suddenly the power went out. In the darkness, Julia tried to kiss him, but the lights came back on before it happened. A few months later, bad news arrived. Mary fell seriously ill. She had been hiding her cancer for a long time, and until the very end, her own father never helped her. Before Mary died, she told Beckett to keep fighting and claim the luxurious life that should have been his. Her final wish was to be buried in the Redfellow Mausoleum, the family burial place. But no one from the family ever responded, so she was buried in a public cemetery instead. After her death, Beckett went straight to Whitelaw's house to demand what belonged to him. But all he received was a letter that simply wished him well. After that, Beckett ended up in an orphanage. And from then on, he never saw Julia again. This is how to make a killing. Years passed, and Beckett grew into an adult with a job in fashion. He lived in a cramped apartment, but he never stopped keeping an eye on the Redfellow family. Since they were rich and powerful, the chances of them dying off anytime soon seemed very small. Then one day, while Beckett was at work, Julia unexpectedly walked in as a customer. Their lives had gone in completely different directions. Julia was now successful, and she was engaged to Lyle. Even so, there was still a spark between them. And Julia had not forgotten that Beckett still had a chance of inheriting the Redfellow fortune. That encounter with Julia brings everything back for Beckett. He starts thinking about his mother's words, about the life he was supposed to have, and most importantly, the inheritance. That is when he finally decides to act. He begins by watching Taylor, his cousin who works as a broker in the family's financial company. At first, Beckett hesitates, questioning what he is about to do. But then something pushes him over the edge, and he makes a decision that changes everything. He will eliminate the Redfellow family one by one, starting with the youngest. Around the same time, Beckett loses his job, not because he performed poorly, but simply because the owner's child wanted his position. That becomes the final trigger. Not long after, Beckett puts his plan into motion. He sneaks into a party hosted by Taylor. The atmosphere is chaotic, with Taylor even throwing money to his friends from a helicopter. In the middle of all that chaos, Beckett spots an opportunity. He notices Taylor heading toward a yacht and immediately follows him. On the yacht, Taylor is heavily drunk and barely aware of what is happening. Taking advantage of the situation, Beckett grabs an anchor, ties it to Taylor's leg, and lets his body sink into the sea. Just like that, Taylor is gone.
If I'm carrying this out.
Later, Taylor is buried in the Redfellow Mausoleum, and Beckett attends the funeral like nothing happened. After the funeral, Beckett approaches Warren Redfellow, Taylor's father. He introduces himself as Mary's son, making him Warren's nephew. That same night, Warren invites him out for drinks. During their conversation, Warren opens up about his distant relationship with Taylor. At first, Warren was supposed to be Beckett's next target, but unexpectedly, Warren becomes something else entirely. He becomes the person who saves Beckett's life. Instead of suspicion, Warren offers him a job, allowing him to take Taylor's position. Despite having no background in finance, Beckett adapts quickly. Within a year, he manages to save money and even continue his education. Then one night, Julia reaches out to him again. They both want to meet, but the timing never seems right. Still, Beckett has not abandoned his plan. His next target is another cousin, Noah Redfellow. Noah is an artist, more of a carefree photographer than anything else. Beckett attends one of Noah's exhibitions, pretending to be a huge admirer of his work. Eventually, Beckett reveals his true identity as Noah's cousin. Instead of reacting negatively, Noah welcomes him warmly. He shows Beckett around, even takes a photo with him, and later invites him back to his place to see his photo studio. While they are talking and relaxing, a woman calls out to Noah. This is Ruth, Noah's girlfriend. That night, the three of them share a meal together. Surprisingly, Beckett finds himself connecting with Ruth more than with Noah. They quickly realize they have a lot in common, and their conversations flow naturally. From that moment, something starts to grow between them. Before they part ways, Ruth invites Beckett to dinner again the following week. But before that dinner arrives, Beckett knows he needs a better plan. Unlike his first kill, which relied heavily on luck, this one has to be precise. When the dinner finally happens, everything seems normal at first. In the middle of the meal, Beckett excuses himself, makes it seem like he is heading to the bathroom, and closes the door just to create the illusion. In reality, he heads straight to Noah's photo studio. There, he mixes sulfur and potassium chloride, effectively planting an explosive inside the room. He also places a chemical in the kitchen cabinet to make it look like an accident caused by Noah's own negligence. All it would take is a single spark. As Beckett takes longer than expected, people start to notice. Noah goes looking for him, checking the bathroom first, but Beckett is nowhere to be found. Noah eventually heads to his studio to look for Beckett, but before anything seems out of place, Beckett suddenly appears, holding a photo that Noah had taken earlier. He pretends he just wants an autograph, and without any suspicion, Noah signs it. When the night comes to an end, Beckett deliberately leaves his jacket behind and waits outside. He quietly gets rid of the photo while he waits. Not long after, Ruth comes out to return his jacket. In that moment, the two of them grow even closer and share a kiss. A few minutes later, Noah walks back into his studio. That is when everything explodes. Noah is killed instantly. Once again, Beckett attends another funeral, blending in like he always does. But this time, things begin to change. Right after the ceremony, two FBI agents, Pinfield and Matthew, approach him. They are aware that two members of the Redfellow family have died in a short period of time, and now they are starting to investigate. Pinfield asks Beckett about the inheritance, trying to understand if there is any possible motive. But Beckett plays it off, claiming he knows nothing about it and suggesting that he might not even be included in the will. Time passes and years go by. Beckett continues to rise in his career, eventually earning a promotion from Warren thanks to his strong performance. His life seems stable, even successful. Then Julia suddenly reappears. She comes to his office, asking for a loan. She explains that her marriage is falling apart financially. Lyle has failed to keep his family business running, and now everything is on the verge of collapse. Beckett feels uncomfortable. He has no intention of helping, especially since he is not in a position to give loans. Before leaving, Julia quietly takes Beckett's key without him noticing. She also brings up the recent deaths of Noah and Taylor, hinting that something feels off. It is subtle, but the suspicion is there. Despite that, Beckett moves forward with his plan. This time he is much more careful. He creates an alibi by giving his jacket to Ethan, an intern at his company, and sends him to buy a hot dog so he will be recorded on city CCTV. His next target is his uncle, Stephen Redfellow, a pastor. Two deaths could still be considered coincidence, but a third would start to look like a pattern. Stephen has a complicated past involving money laundering, prison time, and financial ruin before rebuilding his life. That kind of history suggests he might already have enemies. Beckett approaches Stephen under a false identity, pretending to be a journalist from a Christian magazine. Stephen welcomes him in and begins talking about his recent travels and sermons. While keeping the conversation going, Beckett carefully shifts Stephen's attention, then secretly adds a substance into his drink. Everything continues normally for a while. Stephen talks about his work, his travels, and even shows a gift he received from a mayor in Kyoto. But then the atmosphere suddenly changes. Stephen begins to question Beckett more closely and realizes something is off. He discovers that the journalist Beckett claimed to be has already retired.
Come on, let me hear it.
Hear what? What do you want?
The truth.
What do you want me to
Give it to me. Come on.
Hey! Okay, come on! Okay.
With no way out, Beckett admits that he is actually Stephen's cousin. The tension fades, and Stephen seems to relax again, no longer seeing him as a threat. Moments later, Stephen drinks from the glass. The substance Beckett used is a tropane alkaloid, something that can act like a supplement in small amounts but becomes deadly when overdosed, triggering a heart attack. Not long after, Stephen collapses and dies. With that, Beckett moves one step closer to achieving his goal. Later that afternoon, Beckett meets Ruth again in a park, and they make plans to have a simple dinner together at home. It is nothing fancy, just cooking something themselves. But when Beckett returns home that night, he is caught off guard. Julia's already inside, casually waiting for him. She managed to get in because she secretly took his key the last time they met. Julia is there to demand answers. For months, Beckett has been ignoring her messages, and now she wants to know what is really going on. Beckett refuses to say anything. Julia tries another approach, attempting to seduce him, but it is clear that he is no longer interested. Then suddenly the doorbell rings. Ruth arrives. Without hesitation, Beckett quickly gets Julia out of the apartment and goes to meet Ruth. To avoid any awkward situation, he immediately suggests that they go out for dinner instead. From that moment on, Beckett and Ruth grow even closer, and their relationship begins to take shape. On the surface, it looks like Beckett has finally found a new life, but in reality, he has not stopped. Julia reaches out to him again, this time with a threat. If he continues to ignore her, something bad will happen. But Beckett chooses not to care. His next target is his aunt, Cassandra Redfellow, a powerful CEO known for adopting children from different countries. After hearing about the deaths within the family, Cassandra becomes paranoid. She installs cameras and even a laser security system. But there is one place that remains unprotected, the spa she visits every Tuesday afternoon. Beckett takes advantage of that gap. He approaches her under the pretense of offering a teeth whitening treatment. Of course, the product is anything but safe. He creates it using a toxic substance designed to resemble a common whitening compound. Not long after, Cassandra dies. Then comes the next target, his uncle MacArthur, Noah's father. He is an adrenaline seeker, someone obsessed with extreme experiences, even planning a trip to the moon. At one point, as MacArthur prepares to fly his jet again, Beckett shows up disguised as staff and hands him a drink mixed with a sleeping agent. The result is inevitable. MacArthur loses consciousness mid-flight and dies in a crash. With each step, Beckett's life continues to improve. He buys a house and invites Ruth to live with him. Now only one major target remains Warren, the man who gave him a second chance at life. At this point, Beckett begins to hesitate. He already has everything he once wanted: money, a home, and someone who truly cares about him. For the first time, there is real conflict inside him about whether he should continue. Time passes, and Beckett and Ruth are now preparing to get engaged. But Ruth starts to feel uneasy. She brings up the fact that so many members of the Redfellow family have died in recent years. Beckett reassures her, saying that everything is over. But those words only leave Ruth confused. If everything is over, why does he sound so certain? Not long after, Beckett arrives at work and is immediately stopped by the FBI. They present him with documents confirming that he is indeed an heir to the Redfellow fortune, directly contradicting what he claimed before. Now the investigation is closing in. They are looking for a motive behind the deaths of Taylor, Cassandra, MacArthur, and Noah. And then they ask a very specific question: where was Beckett on Sunday, April 10th? At the same time, the FBI reviews CCTV footage. It shows Ethan, the intern Beckett used as a decoy, walking around in his place and buying a hot dog. Later that day, Beckett is with Warren, preparing to head home. But suddenly, Warren collapses and has to be rushed to the hospital. In that moment, Beckett feels something he has not felt in a long time: genuine loss. Out of everyone in the family, Warren is the only one who truly stood by him. Before passing away, Warren leaves Beckett with one final message: to live his life the right way. Beckett did not kill him, but he still loses the one person who gave him a new beginning. Now there is only one person left: his grandfather, Whitelaw Redfellow. One morning at the office, Beckett receives a letter from Whitelaw. It is an invitation to a party at his estate. Without hesitation, Beckett tells Ruth that he has to attend. Unfortunately, the timing clashes with their engagement day. Beckett asks for her understanding, and Ruth agrees, but only on one condition: he has to be back by 7 in the evening. But things take a darker turn the moment Beckett steps into his office. Julia's already there, sitting calmly and waiting for him. In her hand is an envelope. Inside are photos of Beckett, taken right after his actions, leaving Stephen's office and while disguised as staff when approaching MacArthur. Julia has been watching him all along. She had someone follow him and document everything. This time her threat is real. She demands $300,000 by that very afternoon to be delivered to Lyle's office. If Beckett refuses, she will expose everything. With no time to waste, Beckett heads straight to Lyle's office, unaware that the FBI is already tracking his movements. Inside, Beckett opens an envelope using a knife while staying on the phone with Julia. She pushes him to write the check immediately if he wants to stay safe. Reluctantly, he complies. Meanwhile, Lyle vents his frustration, complaining that the money will never really reach him anyway. He also mocks Julia, speaking bitterly about her. For some reason, that is enough to trigger something inside Beckett. Without thinking, Beckett lashes out. He attacks Lyle and strangles him. Later that night, Beckett heads to Whitelaw's estate. While back at home, Ruth is hosting the engagement gathering, waiting for him. At the estate, Beckett is greeted by Charles, Whitelaw's assistant. Inside, there is no party, no guests, just Whitelaw himself. They share a quiet dinner, and Whitelaw explains that the party has been canceled due to a storm. Afterward, Whitelaw invites Beckett into his private room. He shows him a collection of shotguns, including one used during World War I. Then he loads it and hands it to Beckett. Whitelaw encourages him to aim. At first, Beckett points the weapon toward the window, but then Whitelaw directs him to aim at his chest. For a moment, this is exactly what Beckett has been working toward all along. But at the last second, he hesitates. He lowers the weapon and decides to leave. As Beckett walks out, everything suddenly changes. The front door has been locked from the outside, the windows are sealed, and then Whitelaw appears again, this time holding his own shotgun. Without warning, he begins firing. Beckett is forced to fight back. After a chaotic struggle, he manages to shoot Whitelaw, killing him. Not long after the police arrive, the case is ruled as self-defense, and Beckett walks away free. Meanwhile, the engagement party is still going on, but Ruth is left waiting, growing more anxious by the minute. Once Beckett is cleared, he returns home. By the time he arrives, the house is quiet. Only Ruth remains, sitting there in silence. And finally, Beckett decides to tell her the truth. He opens up about everything, because she is the one person he truly loves now. In the end, Beckett and Ruth get married, and together they become the heirs of the Redfellow fortune. It seems like everything has finally fallen into place.
This had to be it, right?
But that peace does not last long. Not long after the FBI shows up again, they bring Beckett in for questioning, and this time, they arrest him. The charge is not for the deaths of the Redfellow family, but for the murder of Lyle. Beckett is put on trial, now facing the possibility of a death sentence. One by one, the evidence is presented. CCTV footage shows him visiting Lyle at the office. The knife used to open the envelope is brought in as evidence, stained with blood and carrying Beckett's fingerprints. After everything he has done, it is not the series of calculated killings that brings him down. It is one mistake he never even realized. But something about this case does not add up, because Beckett never actually killed Lyle. The body was first discovered by Julia. During the trial, she takes the stand and claims that she and Beckett had a special relationship, suggesting a motive tied to jealousy and betrayal. While she gives her testimony, Ruth is nowhere to be seen. The trial ends and the verdict is delivered. Beckett is sentenced to death. Time passes, and Beckett now sits in prison, waiting for his execution. Julia comes to visit him. By this point, Beckett already knows that she is behind everything. He has no interest in hearing anything from her, but he still demands to know why she came. Julia reveals that when she first found Lyle's body, he had left behind a written message. Realizing this could prove his innocence, Beckett begs her to hand it over. But Julia has her own plan. In exchange for saving him, she wants everything, his entire inheritance. With no other choice, Beckett signs the documents placed in front of him. The story circles back to the beginning. Only 1 hour remains before his execution. His life now depends entirely on Julia, whether she will keep her promise or betray him. In the end, she follows through. Lyle's final note is handed over to the authorities, revealing that his death was not a murder. Overwhelmed by his failing business and the collapse of his marriage, he took his own life. The knife only connected Beckett to the scene because he had handled it earlier, and their last confrontation made things look worse than they really were. With that, Beckett is cleared. He walks out of prison a free man. Ruth is there, waiting only to return a necklace that once belonged to him. And then Julia arrives to pick him up. They are now the heirs to Whitelaw Redfellow's fortune. But in reality, everything now belongs to Julia. So the moral of the story is, if your family tree starts looking like a crime documentary, maybe stop chasing the inheritance and go to therapy instead.